Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hi, Jackie here. I'm creating another card with one of the stamp sets from the Simon Says Stamp Masterpiece box. This one is called Oh Happy Day and it's from Simon Says Stamp. I'll be using Arch's cold press watercolor paper to stamp these images onto. I love this paper, it has such a nice cottony texture to it. I'm cutting this down to a size a little bit larger than the standard A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I want to have some wiggle room so that I can trim down my panel later. I pulled out my MISTI to stamp my images because the watercolor paper has a lot of texture to it, and I know I'll need to restamp the images several times. In the case of the Oh Happy Day sentiment, I stamped this out about 6 times until I was able to get it dark enough. I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It's a really fabulous ink, but this watercolor paper just tends to absorb the ink. As you can see here, when I open the door, it stamped out really pale the first time. But that's what's great about the MISTI. You can stamp it up as many times as you need to. For the flowers and leaves, I only end up stamping them 2 or 3 times to get the image dark enough. I'm stamping the larger of the 2 flowers first, and I'll be stamping that 3 times on my panel to make a visual triangle. This really helps to balance out the card. Then I move on to the smaller of the 2 flowers and I stamp that 3 times as well. I use the smaller images in the set to fill in around the flowers, and I'm just stamping them randomly across the panel. I have to show you this cute mug that one of my darling nieces sent to me in the mail. I'm going to use it as my water container for my paints. I just love it. I have everything set up and I'm going in with some clean water and wetting down my first flower. Then I can drop in my paint and let the color kind of feather out. I'm going for a messy watercolor look for this card so that the flowers aren't perfectly painted in, leaving behind lots of white spaces. I'm dropping in a watered down pigment first, and then I'm going to allow the flower to dry naturally. After it's dry, I'll wet down a smaller area on the flower and put down a darker pigment and allow that to feather out and dry. This stamp set was designed by Yeon-sun Her. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She creates gorgeous cards and she often uses watercolors. I have a baker's rack in my kitchen that I keep a few cute knickknacks on, and I also display any cards I receive in the mail on it. I keep them up for about a month and then I tuck them away in a drawer. I believe if I ever received a card from her, I would keep it up permanently or maybe even frame it. Her cards are just that gorgeous. You can check out her beautiful cards on her blog, rejoicingcrafts.com. Also, I thought I'd mention that one of the brushes I'm using is a water brush. It's a Zig water brush. However, I'm just dipping it into the clean water from my mug. I feel that I can control the amount of water going onto my paper better this way. I do use it as a proper water brush when I'm on the go or when I'm painting in bed while I'm watching TV. Which brings me to my little tin box of paints on my left. They are Prisma watercolor paints. There are a few different sets. This one is called the Tropicals, and I think it's my favorite. I love all of the colors in this box. The packaging on the box said that they are artist-grade paints. The set was only $20 on Amazon.com. I thought it was a really good deal, and I've been having a lot of fun playing with these paints. I worked on this card off and on for about 2 days, just painting when I had a moment to sit down and then allowing the card to air dry. As I said before, I'm only using one color on each of the flowers. The second layer is less watered down, so it's a lot darker going on. While my flowers are drying, I moved on to paint in the sentiment. I used a bright yellow color from the paint box. This is a really great sentiment because you can use it for a lot of occasions. I think I'm going to be using this one for a birthday card. I'll probably be using it as a congratulations card too. I'm moving on to paint in the background of the card. I'm using a size 2 round brush so that I can get in around all of the flowers. I wish I could tell you the names of the colors I'm using, but this set of paints only assigned numbers to their colors. They don't have proper names attached to them. As always, all of the supplies I used to create this card will be listed on my blog, jackiescrafttable.com. I'm using a rounded corner die to cut out my panel. I'm running it through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. For the sentiment, I'm using a smaller die, and I'm just going to cut that out so that I can pop it up off of my card. I'm being very careful to pull off the micropore tape because it does tend to pull off the watercolor paint. I'm using the same die to cut out some craft foam. I'll use this to prop up the sentiment. I'm pulling out my box of pre-made card bases. These have a nice linen texture to them, and I'm just looking for a white one. Now I can start putting my card together. I'm using some Tombow tape runner to adhere the panel onto the card base. I'm being very generous with this adhesive because of the texture on the watercolor paper as well as the linen card base. I really like how my card panel is smaller than my card base. I like the white border. I think it makes the card really pop. The craft foam adds some cute dimension to the card as well. I'm using some more Tombow tape runner to adhere that to the front of the card. I hope you enjoyed watching this card video. I had a lot of fun making this card. You'll be seeing more watercolor cards from me, as well as more beautiful stamp sets from the Masterpiece box from Simon Says Stamp. Oh, and one more thing with this card, I'm adding a bit of sparkle. I'm using my Spectrum Noir glitter pen. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked the card, and you can also subscribe if you'd like to be notified of further card videos I make. Bye!